So we're here in St. Louis. We're shooting the perspective review of The Fugitive, 1993. And we have a retired Deputy U.S. Marshal. We have the podcast guy. We've got a chief of police and a hostage negotiator and one flatfoot from the south side. And it's a really awesome conversation. We just got done shooting it. So I'm going to give you some snippets of it and then go down to the description below and click on the link to go over to whatcopswatch.com and listen to the entire podcast.
You know, and you think about the inmate, he had a shank to begin with. Where did he get it? Because most of those inmates, you know, they're getting searched before they get on the bus.
Right.
And, you know, we always search our vehicles before and after, like a police officer should do. You're going to put somebody in there, you want to search that vehicle before you put somebody in there.
Right.
Because if something's found in there, then you know that it came from that person. But I've been around institutions, both federal and state, all over this country, and you know who cleans those buses? Other inmates.
Yeah.
Right.
And so, you know, if the guy, the guy who's going to run and leave his partner and leave everybody else, he didn't check that bus.
Yeah. You mean like the BB and pellet guns?
Yeah,
available
the ones that
look
shoot the
exactly
little white
like
pellet.
Airsoft.
Yeah. So you take the airsoft guns. We had an incident with a couple airsoft guns. We had a couple kids running through a grocery store parking lot. Had them in their belt.
Right.
They look and weigh exactly.
Yeah.
Like the
Very
real weapon.
discernible. Right.
And we had one of our cops.
As we mentioned the dam, I mean, how can we not mention the dam and talk about what is probably one of the greatest scenes in movie history?
Yeah.
Where you have Kimball and Gerard face off, literally.
Well, yeah, you have Harrison
It's
Ford
amazing.
and Tommy Lee Jones, two great actors that are
Right.
face to face with the line that we mentioned before. We brought up in discussion, "I didn't kill my wife, and I don't care," and it just epitomizes the characterization on these two. Where, like I said, going back to Tommy Lee Jones, he's just bitter, cynical, and been on the job too long, and that's the way that they want to portray him.
Right.
And I think that's why he captures the audience. And then his, he pulled a Peter Pan off the dam, throwing in the, his slang, cop-like lingo, and I don't know. I thought it was one of the best scenes in the movie, so I think we need to mention it.
Well, it is without question.
I like the other deputy's response to it, though. Holy shit, can we go home now?
Right.
It's over. Right.
Exactly. And that would be most cops'
I
perspective.
think
That's exactly what I would have said. Can we go home
right
now?
after that.
4 days, I want to shave.
But
Right after that, you have the state police. I don't know what position this guy held, but he portrayed being the state police commander, I think, out there. And he's like, he's wanting to go home, and he's been traveling up and down the Mississippi River over there trying to locate that dam, and I have yet to find it.
Yeah, you keep on looking, because you won't find it.
It's right near that mountain.
And
in
it's
Illinois.
kind of interesting. In one of the shots that you see, very quick shot, if you look at the movie, the water's not moving.
Interesting.
It's a still shot.
So it's a creek. Or it's not a creek someplace, it's just a pond someplace.
No, it's an actual dam, but they took a picture of it and inserted it there. It's not where the water's moving down. It's just like standing still.
Just static. Wow.
Yeah.
Well, I'll have to go back and look. Time to talk about jurisdiction. This is one of my favorite pieces of this because of the people that we have inside the room. Again, Chris and Pat are from a local law municipality. Chris has been in law enforcement for 25 years. Pat has been in crisis negotiation for the same amount of time, about the same amount of time?
15 or so.
15 years. Tommy has been a cop now for 10 years and is inside of the South Chicago area. And of course, Rick is a retired U.S. Marshal. And so to have the discussion of jurisdiction is perfect for this perspective review and something you will hear nowhere else. Let's begin.
Well, I guess first off, the old, "Hey, I'm from the federal government. I'm here. I'm going to take over your crime scene." I don't see that. I mean, that's not a reality these days. I don't see that. That's not something that typically happens. Now, back in the day, Rick can maybe give us a perspective that maybe that did occur.
In this particular case, you have a state murder inmate. Who, obviously, it's a high-profile case.
Huge.
In
It's huge.
Chicago itself,
Right.
because of the guy's position as a vascular surgeon. And you also, although you don't find out till later in the movie, the connection with police department. We don't know what happened in between there. And so you've got this guy en route with other inmates who are dangerous inmates on their way all the way from Chicago to Menard, which is about 6 hours south of there. It's not like they went across town.
Right.
And so then you have this escape take place. What's interesting is in reality, in Marshal Service, we're assigned to judicial districts. There's 94 judicial districts in the United States. There's 3 in Illinois. Most states have 2.
Mm-hmm.
We have the Northern, the Central, and the Southern District. Then you have U.S. Marshal assigned by the President to each of those judicial districts, and then their deputies, which I was one of. So if something were to happen in Menard, the Marshal Service out of East St. Louis would take the lead on that, not Chicago. So to come all the way from Chicago to do this is not,
Display of disrespect between agencies. Is any of what we see a reality in any of your experiences over? I think you've got the most experience in that you're celebrating 40 years in law enforcement. Anything. Go
I
ahead.
hate to say that, it makes me sound old. I'm really not that old.
The bottom line, though, is that those more years of experience instantly give you more perspective, which is why someone like you is so valuable inside of a program like this. You really do. You just have more experience. It is exactly why we have people like you and Chris and Tommy and Pat in.
In this
Because you
movie,
just have
as I
diverse
remember it and what I saw and reflected on the last couple of days, Tommy Lee shows up on the scene with his people. He doesn't just jump into it. He actually walks up to where this interrogation of this correctional officer is being done by the sheriff, and he just kind of innocently interjects something, and the sheriff turns around and says, "I'll get with you in a minute."
Yeah.
Now, a sheriff wouldn't do that.
Right.
He would be more professional, but it was written that way. If I went up in something, if I was called by an authority to come into an investigation, and I showed up, and someone acted that way to me, I mean, it wouldn't start off very good.
Right.
And everybody would
and
shut down.
It wouldn't be happening.
You're not going to get the information sharing. Everybody'd shut down, and it frankly, the investigation wouldn't go that well.
Right.
So as
Well, it
far
doesn't
as
foster anything.
as far as the disrespect between agencies and a reality, in my experience, I can't say that I've really ever seen that. What about you, Tommy?
No, and I can only imagine that if something like that was to happen, if it became necessary, if you had the sheriff was going to be an obstructionist to an investigation, he has his little press conference, whatever. 20 minutes later, in the tent back
Right.
on the other side,
Yeah.
the commander, the local commander of the state police,
Right.
the marshal that got sent down from the Northern District of Illinois, and the Illinois Department of Corrections guys would get together and be like, all right, listen, you're either going to take the proper role in this or your agency's just going to get cut out of it. 'Cause
Shenanigans out the
we can't
window.
deal with
Right.
that.
Yeah.
You can't be going to the press with this
Right.
Right.
when we still have people, now we have people in the wind and you're
All the
destroying our
behind closed
investigation.
doors.
I will say,
It'd be a
though,
coordinated
that
effort.
being a retired federal agent, I will have to say sometimes you get that level of disrespect from FBI agents. I've had that before. We've had a little run in here and there because they'll show up and they want to take over something we're doing.
Yeah.
Th-
Now,
th-
that's,
hold on.
no,
You
that's,
do
have- you
that's
do have
correct.
those
Between
sometimes.
federal agencies, you'll have a rub occasionally.
And which of you has a personal helicopter on standby? Tommy?
I'd like to believe I do, but I don't know if it's ever happened.
I want to know
I do,
who has
but
the-
it's a little bitty thing.
Yeah, right.
So-
Yeah,
I'm waiting for the
it's
day
made by
where
the
I'm that
manufacturer
important.
Matchbox. Yeah, I got the same
I
one.
want to know who has the turboprop, the twin turboprop airplane,
Right.
standing by at
Yeah.
Meigs Field in downtown Chicago, waiting to fly them down to Southern Illinois.
Right.
Actually, the Marshal Service, even back in '93, there'd be a number of times where I would get orders to go get someone. And one particular time, there was a guy in a state institution in New Hampshire, and me and my partner, who actually is a warrant supervisor in East St. Louis now, and another deputy, we had to charter a small plane and fly all the way to Providence, Rhode Island, pick up this guy and bring him right back to Marion, Illinois.
That's awesome.
We've done that before.
Jacking an ambulance or a cruiser? Is it really that easy?
No, I mean,
So,
not a police car. It's, I mean, as far as
Well,
an ambulance goes, I don't know.
That's pretty easy if they leave the keys in it there at the,
Right, yeah.
at the hospital.
Ambulances
I mean,
are very easy.
It's always kind of interesting. you see people jump in a car and all of a sudden they pull these wires and all of a sudden
Yeah.
in 2 seconds they're driving that vehicle.
Yeah.
We've
That
talked
doesn't
about
happen.
that. Right.
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 It doesn't happen.
Especially
But it-
nowadays, it's not going to work.
Yeah.
Doesn't
Yeah,
work.
with
But
the-
you know, I can see an ambulance driver leaving his keys in the bay because he wants to keep it cool. I've had situations like that. Not an ambulance being stolen, but other type of vehicles for that same reason. But I don't know too many people that hijack a helicopter unless the pilot's on board.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's going to be tough.
Yeah.
The police car, it'll normally have an interlock device, so the car could be running,
Right.
Yeah.
but the ignition's locked, and you can't get it anywhere.
Yeah, but those didn't come on. Well, you
Yeah.
didn't have them back in
No.
'93.
But an ambulance are a huge problem in the Chicago metro area. We've got a lot of private ambulance companies. In fact, there's a couple of private ambulance companies in the Fugitive that are still operating. That I know the owner of one of them, Daily Ambulance, is now Daily/Bud's Ambulance, and they get ambulances stolen all
I
all
believe
the
in
time.
In the last 3 or 4 days, we had a fire truck stolen. Some
Yeah.
kids went out.
I've
to
seen
join
that
our
too.
fire truck.
Volunteer fire department
Crazy.
trucks stolen. But ambulances get stolen so much that at least 20% of the time, if I run the license plate for an ambulance in the Chicagoland area that is from a private ambulance company, it'll come back stolen.
Wow.
Because some psych
Wow.
patient will get into the ambulance
And
when
just
it's
take
parked
off.
somewhere, or somebody will get in the ambulance and they'll take off and they'll drive it 6 towns over, get out and leave it. It gets reported as stolen, and some agencies near me are not really good about taking the ambulance back out.
yeah.
Yeah.
In fact, they're not very good about taking stolen cars back out, period.
Right. Yeah. The police car back in the day when he's talking, we wouldn't have all the equipment that we have. The big thing is like the computer and that. We got to keep that cool. We got to keep that police car running. So they have safety measures that they put in place where we keep them locked and such. Years ago, 1993, we didn't have all that kind of stuff. So a lot of times you didn't keep them running. The only threat to that is your lights would eventually wear down your battery, and then your car might not start. Or you pull up and you accidentally leave your siren on, and you lock yourself out of the car. That's happened. A couple times,
Overheating
too.
was an issue
Yeah.
too.
Yeah.
You know.
So just embarrassing. You got
Are there-
your lights and sirens on, and
Are there a
it's sitting
second
out
set of
front.
keys for every vehicle? I mean,
Yeah.
is it just
Yeah.
Either
A lot of
that
them are
or
key lights.
they're keyed the same.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Interesting. Again, great perspective on something that someone would ask and don't have the answers for, and now you do.
Say, well, Sheriff, I guess I'll just have to take over your investigation. And the sheriff responds, by what? By whose authority? The governor of the state of Illinois. So somebody had called the Marshal Service into that. Well, they just didn't show up on their own. Unlike the other movie, the sequel, that is a U.S. Marshal Service aircraft that's portrayed in that with an actual federal prisoner. A little bit different. We would have had the lead.
Right.
But in this case, it wouldn't have been the lead, but we would come in, and as it ended up being as they get back to Chicago, I think you had a lot of different agencies were working together, although Samuel Gerard was leading that investigation, working in task force fashion, which is more like we do today.
And does something that's as high profile as this case sound like something that would pop up on the radar of a governor to then issue an order to have the Marshal Service take over the investigation?
Absolutely. I mean, state
Okay.
police would probably
Okay.
be in there too.
Do the
Initially, I would say that the local jurisdiction would have been the sheriff, but once it's determined who this guy is, you're going to have the Department of Corrections people in there. You're going to have the state police in there. They would more be leading that investigation, and a lot of times the federal government wouldn't become involved in it until it goes beyond the jurisdictional boundaries of the state law.
Have you encountered a state police-based organization that would have the resources and experience to jump into something like this?
Well,
and
state
wrap it up?
police would.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean, they would
the
today.
guys-
I don't know what they would.
The guys on the Fugitive Task Force that work with the marshals all the time.
Right.
would.
You know,
That's
we,
good.
we
Well,
developed these in the late 1990s. We started coming out with federal fugitive task forces. And we'll talk about this later, a particular incident in this movie, which was something that they kind of took off of what we did in an actual real life situation. Come in a task force fashion
Right.
and work together, the local sheriff with whoever is in charge in the Marshal Service with other agencies too. And you work together. It's not, hey, we're in charge of this. That doesn't happen that way.
Well, I think just having enough conversations with Pat and having attended a bunch of class-like things with you, what I find also is that everyone that jumps into a situation where you're working in tandem with another agency of any kind, it really is sponge factor.
Right.
You literally jump in, not so that you can grab a belt of prestige and notch another table. It's so that you can get in there and soak up more experience. It's why I do things like this, that I can get all the details and background of things I would never know anything about if I wasn't asking questions about feature films that everybody on planet Earth watches.
Right.
It's exactly the same concept.
Hey, thanks for watching Free Field Training on YouTube. While you're here, why don't you go check out one of our other videos, or you can head on over to the Patreon and say get your name put on the videos like these fine folks listed over here. There's also some exclusive content on Patreon that just shows you kind of behind the scenes like you're seeing now. We'll see you guys next time.